A seizure is a synchronous or organized firing of the neurons of brain cells when it doesn't serve an organized purpose. So depending on where in the brain this abnormal firing occurs, we can have very, very different clinical manifestations, which is why it might start with someone feeling like they have what we call an aura or a deja vu episode, for instance, and then progress to full generalized shaking with loss of consciousness. Because it just depends on where the abnormal electrical activity begins and where it ultimately travels within the brain.
That's my mother-in-law's house, mother-in-law, father-in-law, right here. That's our one and only store. This is Bayou Pigeon. Not very big, but all good people. I've been crawfishing for about 15 years, 12, 15 years. I love it. Last night I went ahead and loaded everything in the boat already, so all we have to do is head out. We're ready to go crawfishing. We're ready to go catch some bugs. This is what they call a pull boat road that we're on. This is from years ago when they came through here and they logged all the cypress trees years ago. They make these pull boat roads. And they used to lay the logs down and pull them through here. This is the color of my flagging on my traps. This here is a pretty good trap, better than the other. Got a couple pounds in it. Yeah. I was on a tractor chopping in front of my stand, and all of a sudden I just start feeling numbness all in my right arm and my right leg. Went into a seizure. I was stretched back on a tractor, almost falling off, and I asked them, what just took place? And they said, you had a seizure. And I just kind of shook my head, and I was like, how is this possible? How is this happening? Why is this happening? After the seizure, they put me on some medicine, and I was just on one pill. And then it was good for about 3 weeks on me, and I'm guessing my body would get immune to it. And then I'd start having little seizures. At this point, I'm up to 6 of them pills at night. They didn't want to upgrade me anymore because now we're getting closer to the surgery.
When Landon first came to me, I think he'd been having seizures for about 18 months. He had gone from being fully functional, fully independent, 2 kids, to now having to rely on his wife and his partners at work to do most of the things that he was used to doing, and he was very frustrated by this. He had already failed 2 seizure medicines at full dosage, which is a prerequisite for any patient to be considered for seizure surgery. We want to make sure that we can't control the seizures with medications alone before we bring any patient to the operating room.
I went in and did one to where they just stuck stuff all over my head, and they put me in a room, pulled me off the medicine and said, we need you to have some seizures.
So we put the electrodes in on a Monday, and if I recall correctly, it took less than a week for him to have all of the seizures that we needed to be able to determine that both the outpouching and the deeper structures were involved. So Dr. Stephen thoughtfully put a little arrow here. This little white area doesn't have a mate on the other side, but this is an abnormal outpouching of the brain, which corresponds to this right here. You can see that pokes down a little further. But this was an extra piece of information that we added to to the mix to solving the mystery of where your seizure started. And that's why we wanted to put an electrode directly in that area to see if that's where your seizures were starting. So here is a reconstruction of what your brain looks like, or your skull at this point. This was after we put the leads in. So you can see how tiny the holes are from the leads.
Yeah.
It's like almost like nothing was ever even there. And we can see your brain, and we can see these little blue dots, and that's how small these electrodes are. They're like pieces of angel hair pasta. That gave us the information that we needed to know, that not only were the seizures coming from the deep structures of the brain, but also from where that outpouching was that we saw on MRI. This is essentially what the leads look like that we put in your brain. It has these little electrodes at the tip so that we can measure the seizure activity in your brain, and that goes out to the computer that was sitting next to you when you were in the ICU with us. And then we just take the stiffening out, and it's good to measure.
They showed me exactly what they wanted to do, and what they wanted to do was remove that part of my brain and clean all of that out. And when we went for the surgery, I've never been more excited to go to a hospital and get it done. When we went in there, I was smiling from ear to ear. My family was there, and I was ready for it to happen. Without the procedure, I don't know where I'd be at today. With the surgery now, I got my life back. I have my family back. I mean, my wife, she pretty much babysat me, you know, through all of this. I didn't have a driver's license. She had to take care of me. She brought me everywhere.
And he gradually increased his level of independence and responsibility at work so that he's now back to doing everything the same as he was before the seizures ever began.
And now I'm able to work, I'm able to go crawfishing, I'm able to help with the kids. You know, it's just, I'm back to a normal person now, rather than where I was 2 years ago compared to where I'm at today. It's like my life is back.